We are ready to talk about directions for review and preview 7.2.4. Your first question with 74 says to simplify each of the following expressions by using one of the strategies in the math notes box for this lesson. The math notes box here gives you two choices, either supergiant 1 or invert and multiply. So we can take the divisor, invert it, turn it upside down, use its reciprocal, and then we can multiply across. So those are your choices. So on A and B, again, you get to pick what strategy you use. Keep in mind for part C, you've got two mixed numbers that you're going to have to change to improper fractions first. Then you can use your strategy of choice and find your answer. Just be sure your answer is in simplest form. For question 75, we've got some paint that's being poured into containers that hold 75 hundredths of a gallon. And it's asking you how many containers are going to be needed. This question is actually, think of the context of this. We have 9 gallons to start with that we're dividing into smaller pieces. So we've got 9 that we're going to divide into groups of 75 hundredths. If you set this up with 9 divided by 75 hundredths, you can leave them as decimals. You could turn 75 hundredths into a fraction. The choice is yours. But in the end, we're looking for how many containers will be needed, and it should come out to a whole number. For question 76, there's some information for you to read about regarding a rectangular pen that's being built. It says that they're going to use one side of the 60-foot wall of the barn as part of the pen. So you've got all this space here for 76 to use. I would suggest drawing a visual because there are 2 different ways that this could work. That's why it says, can you find more than one answer? So if, for example, I'm saying that this right here is the wall of the barn, which is 60 feet. In either example, the barn itself isn't going to require fencing. The other 3 sides will, but the barn itself will not. If this part of the barn is 60 feet, I know this part over here will also be 60 feet. And based on the clues that they give you, it says that they want the width of the pen to be half of the length. So if this is the length, the width would only be half as much. And if that's the case, once I know what these 2 sides are, then the only 3 sides I need for fencing would be these parts right here, because again, the barn is already there. I don't have to put fencing along the barn. Now, the other situation that we're looking at would be maybe the barn is the width instead of the length. So for a second situation, we can say, okay, here's the barn. Again, we know it's 60 feet. But this time, if it's the short side of the rectangle, then my rectangle is going to be out this direction much farther. This side is still going to be 50 feet, but then these longer sides would have to be twice as much as what we've got. So once I know those 2 missing side lengths, same as before, you are only going to have 3 sides of the rectangle to put fence along, because you will not put fence along this side of the barn. So I am looking for 2 different answers, and again, making a diagram may help you. Include those missing numbers, but 3 sides to add up to get the amount of fencing that's going to be needed for the pen. Question 76, they've got 4 different points asking you for some ordered pairs. I think it's pretty straightforward here. We're going to go with the number that tells it, or how far to the right is our first value, how far up is our second value inside those parentheses. For question 78, it shows you a figure here made up of some tiles, and they ask you a couple of questions. The first question is, what is the total area of the shaded tiles? If each tile, like they tell you, is 1 square foot, basically for part A, you can count. If you count up all of the tiles, that would be the number of square feet for part A. Now in part B, it asks you what's the total area of the rectangle that is not shaded. There are several ways you can do this, but as an option, what you could do would be to determine how many tiles fit along the bottom side all the way across. How many tiles fit up the side all the way top to bottom? I can multiply those two to figure out how many tiles there would be total altogether. Then, once I know the total, I can use my answer from part A, which was the shaded part. I can use that to figure out the part that would not be shaded. So again, count for part A, but you're going to have to take a couple of steps there for part B.